Hello and welcome to Technology Artist in New York. My guest today is Iara Lee. She's an activist filmmaker and founder of Culture of Resistance. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Iara Lee, the mission of your project is to create and distribute films that advance public awareness about issues of social and economic justice, and that showcase creative efforts to promote peace and protect human rights. Burkinabè Rising, your latest documentary. How did you become aware of the situation in a small country like Burkina Faso? And what motivated you to make this film?
I was going there to explore a little bit what activists were doing in agroecology. You know, they're trying to protect their seeds and fight against Monsanto and genetically modified food. So I was doing this project with Slow Food International. But when I got to Burkina Faso, I realized everybody was an activist. So I got very excited. All the musicians, photographers, dancers, filmmakers, everybody was an activist. And then I decided to make two films, one about the culture of resistance in Burkina Faso and one about agroecology. I mean, it's fascinating, you know, through the power of creative resistance, they got rid of a president that was glued to power for 27 years through creativity. So I think it's a great example, and it's not a theory, it's like action on the ground. So look at this, a small landlocked country in West Africa that most people have never heard about. They made revolution, and they are committed to that long term.
How does the power of art influences politics?
Well, we're not going to use bombs. We're not going to use chemical weapons. We're going to have to use creativity. And I think that's the only, recourse we have to fight all these governments and corporations and war profiteers. And, I think we are little ants, little colibris, little hummingbirds. And we have to use all we can to creatively stop war, injustice, oppression, and I think music has incredible power, and photography and dance and everything that is creative. And I always urge people to engage because, we are more than 7 billion in this world. So if we unite, we can make change.
How did you research that project? Did you actually travel to the country and did research there locally? Or did you do a lot of reading beforehand or a lot of, historical research? What tipped you off?
I'm one of those crazy people that I just land on a place, don't know anybody, and then like a few weeks later, I know the whole cultural world, And even the Burkinabè, they were like, wow, how do you know all these people? I'm like, through social media, contacting one that introduces me to another. For me, filmmaking is a learning process. I don't come from the expert point of view, and then I'll teach the audience. What I learn, I share. And it's very natural filmmaking kind of thing. Same thing in Lesotho. My staff almost wanted to quit on me. They were like, you just landed in Lesotho and you're already making a film. But, there are different types of filmmaking, the ones that people plan, but the others that are just natural as you meet people on the ground, and naturally get to understand the process and how they use the limited power we all have to provoke change.
How do you deal with the language barrier on the set? I know you're working in the post-production and you figure it out in post-production what people said. But if you're interviewing somebody whose language you don't speak, do you have an interpreter or how do you work?
Well, it's a mixture of everything. And making a film is like running an army, And when it comes to languages, wow, we have like a whole army of volunteers all over the world. I speak French. I was able to communicate with everybody in Burkina Faso. But then I chose an editor in Bulgaria who did not speak French. So I had to get all the interviews translated for him. When I made Cultures of Resistance film, we had 16 languages in the film. Every day there was a volunteer, Farsi, Amazonian language, Arabic, Zulu languages, and it was just maddening, But I feel it's very important to allow people to express themselves in their mother tongue, But then it becomes a nightmare in post-production. But I think it's very important to allow people to just share their ideas in a very natural way. I'm all for natural filmmaking.
Do you have a basic crew you're working all the time with, or do you choose the crew according to the project?
I'm very experimental, and again, I feel it's very important to empower people from the countries that I'm working at. So when I go to Burkina Faso, I work with local crew members. Sometimes things go very wrong, but it's part of being experimental, and you just have to accept. I mean, obviously, it would be much easier for me to just bring professionals from Europe and US. Sometimes I bring one, just to coordinate the whole crew, but I always try to involve a lot of local filmmakers and crew members and post-production people. In the K2 film in Pakistan, my entire team was Pakistani. I was the only foreigner. And, we edited in Pakistan. I don't only just shoot in these countries, but sometimes I do post-production in those countries. So it's really like an international navigating kind of thing and very experimental with lots of mistakes. But I think at the end, it's good to be involving people from the global south in all aspects of filmmaking.
I know you as an experimental filmmaker. I mean, we have been doing a couple of projects together in the past. I mean, we started at Synthetic Pleasures, and I did a little bit of camera work on modulations, and then I edited the Architectura series for you. So your avant-garde spirit has not left, right?
No, and it's becoming more radical.
Very good. So how do you find the people actually? I mean, do you have a researcher, a fixer, or how do you approach the search for the right people?
No, everything is very spontaneous. We put on social media and then friends of friends recommend, and it's very laborious because, networking is a very laborious thing. But, even when Facebook shuts me down because I talk about Israel war crimes, I just open 3 more Facebook pages and then I keep on going. And the word gets out, and it's very beautiful, this kind of like participatory filmmaking. So I'm just the coordinator of all these talented people. When you look at my films, the credits list is almost as long as the film because there are so many people involved, and I really appreciate that, One, will do a translation, another will do a painting, another will do a design, or, and all these volunteers all over the world feeling involved. I think that's very important, than just hiring professionals and making everything very stiff.
I went to the film screening in New York last week, and it was very well attended. Beautiful film, very, very beautifully photographed. The editing, the music, it really flows nicely together. So the questions people were asking in the audience, in the discussion afterwards, is like, how does the film really help the people in the country to overcome their problems? The film is raising an awareness international, and you won the UNESCO award. I congratulate you for that. What's your feedback? Does the film really help the situation in the country?
Yes, I think it's very important for me as a filmmaker. I know not all filmmakers can do that. I think it's very important to create this rapport and long-term relationship. So, for example, now we are working with one of the activists in the film, and we are trying to support him so he can go to universities in different cities to continue, engaging young people in Burkina Faso, to really embrace the spirit of Thomas Sankara and, find the government that they deserve, because it's going to be a long-term process. You don't get rid of a despot and next day everything is democratic. So they know this is a long haul. So we are working with musicians and the activists on the ground. We are doing, this work with the agroecologists, and we are just trying to support them through networking or sometimes financial small grants, or, just kind of keep on going. And in Burkina Faso, we screen in all the different cities through the Cine du Roi Libre Festival, Cine Club. So it's not just Ouagadougou, the capital. And the film is going to more than 78 countries. I just sent an email to my assistant asking where's the latest count, because we want to go to at least 100 countries by the end of the year. And since we're almost at 80, I think we'll succeed. And to me, it's important to bring the film not only to, European countries or America, but also to different places around the world, so people feel included. If someone sees this in Somalia, someone sees this in Eritrea or Sudan, they will feel empowered. They'll be like, wow, Burkinabè did it. Maybe we can do it too.
So it's just the inspiration that's transmitted through the film. And I noticed that you're working very well with music. I mean, in all your films, starting with Synthetic Pleasures, Modulations, and Architectura, you even had a music label once back in New York where you sponsored independent DJs and musicians to do their work. So the musicians in your film, how did you work with the music? When you do the post-production, when you choose the tracks, what is your criteria? How do you decide what kind of music you choose for a particular project?
In this last one, I basically used only music from Burkina Faso, and they're all these talented musicians who are activists, and they were so kind to donate their music to the film. And each project is like very indigenous music. If I make a film in Pakistan, most of the music will be Pakistani. Sometimes we do some cross-cultural, like in Pakistan, we had music scored by an Iranian who ended up like, he speaks Farsi, but he said at the end of the film, he was almost speaking Urdu. We do a lot of cross-cultural too, but, it's just very much like the feel and the mood of each project. But we also try to include a lot of the indigenous musicians, indigenous all around, the people from the camera crew all the way to post-production and musicians. And lately I've been working a lot with Bulgarian people. My color correction person is from Bulgaria. My poster design is from Bulgaria, just because I started editing with a very young snowboarding editor met in Korea in a mountain festival. So I'm basically the same, I'm always trying to give opportunity to first timers, because I really think it's exciting to give opportunity for the unproven but talented people.
How do you fund the projects? Do you have external funding? Do you have grants, or is it all out of pocket?
Well, now I've been doing this socially responsible investing, which is basically something I pioneered, back then, when people didn't believe that you could make money investing in things that are good for society, So I've been doing this like renewable energy, and SRI means socially responsible investing, which excludes things like weapons or even cigarettes or alcohol or, oil companies and things that are very lucrative, But there are so many things that you can invest and make your money become more money through this SRI. So I've been lucky to be able to independently now do these low budget films and do all this work that is very uncommercial through this commercial outlet, using capitalism against capitalism.
That's very cool. Nice, nice.
It's always low budget, but as you said, even if it's low budget, at the end it does cost a lot. So it involves a lot of like kind people volunteering their help, and we've been successful because we distribute, like if we have 100 interviews, we're not going to try to get one volunteer to translate 100 interviews. We'll just spread it and like three for you, and then the problem is the coordination, the logistics, but we've been successful.
Tell me a little bit about the journey from being an avant-garde filmmaker to becoming a political activist filmmaker.
I was in Pakistan in 2000 visiting the Afghan refugee camps because I was making a short film about the woman under the Taliban. And they started throwing stones at me with Kalashnikov in the air. And I was just like, I'm here to, talk about your plight and bring to the world what's going on. And why are you doing this? And they were like, every day photographers, journalists, filmmakers, and nothing changes for us. And that's when I realized, you cannot just denounce and portray what's going on in the world and leave people as you found them. So that's when I decided to really engage in a more profound way. And since I come from this avant-garde arts and culture world, that was my tool to be an activist, and it's becoming my life philosophy now.
I'm hearing a lot from people, also activists in the financial system, saying cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology might be very important for third world countries because most of these people have not access to a banking system.
I just noticed that in some African countries, the level of inflation is so crazy. Like, people have piles and piles of cash, like in Somalia or Somaliland and some other countries, or even Zimbabwe years ago, So to buy bread, you need piles and piles of cash. And I noticed that lately people are all using through the phone, so all the exchanges are done electronically. And I think this is actually one of the things, how the world will survive or how we're going to have a meltdown is all digital. And the more we can, gain control over these and use it for, positive action, it's very important because it has the potential of destroying us. Going back to what we did together, synthetic pleasures, it was about this passion of technology and try to control the world. But unfortunately, technology is there most of the time to control us in a negative way. So we need to also use all our power to move this incredible technological knowledge to positive route,
Do you have already any future projects planned for the next year? How do you approach your next piece?
Yeah, things are very much like, ad hoc and personal. When I made a film about the Moroccan occupation of Western Sahara is because I was there in the refugee camps showing the film I made on Syrian war. I've been pretty much committed to the anti-occupation movement. So, just like the Palestinians, and I think it's still in pre-production, but I may do a short film about the Indonesian occupation of West Papua. We'll see, and I'm just editing now this one that we shot in Lesotho. And I also shot one in Chernobyl in Ukraine, but then I got this malaria that knocked me down for 3 months. So we missed the post-production schedule. So now I had to find the time to finish this one about Chernobyl 30 years later, which is a very, very strange phenomenon there because it's becoming Disneyland and people go to Chernobyl for tourism, you know? So it's about the pop culture of Chernobyl. That film was going to be very different because it's not going to be this fast paced that most of my films are. They're going to be more eerie and very Tarkovsky kind of like soundscapes, you know? So I'm very excited because it will be an experimental film. And it will have the energy, you know, because it's about all the people that are getting attracted, the artists and the hikers and the tourist industry. And I mean, to the point that Fukushima people came and says, how can we turn Fukushima into post-apocalypse tourism? I was like, humans are strange.
You started Synthetic Pleasures in Japan, right?
Yeah, I always think like, you know, I get attracted to it, like how strange humans are.
So how do you stay healthy? I mean, you travel to very dangerous countries. How do you really deal with all these like issues of being in so many different countries all the time?
Oh, I know. I totally underestimated because I was going to Africa for a whole year. And I was like, I can't take this pill, you know, a whole year. So I'm just going to stay natural. And the mosquitoes came and just kind of like, you know, it was the malaria that kills you, the one that becomes brain malaria. So if you're not treated very quickly, you can be dead in 3 days. And I just lost an amazing musician that was in the Burkina Faso film. And he just dies suddenly. And I think it's the same species of malaria, you know, because there are different types. You know, most of them, you just get sick and then it recurs when your, you know, immune system is weak. But this one, Plasmodium falciparum, is the one that really kills you, you know. But, you know, life is about taking risks, you know. If it's not a bomb, it's a mosquito.
But what you're doing in Paris right now, are you promoting the film or what are you doing in Paris?
Yes, you know, it goes from rejection to love. I mean, for a long while, Paris is like, oh, not interested in your films. But all of a sudden, we have 3 big events showing our film. So I came for one of them, and it was very beautiful because it's for the underprivileged neighborhood in Belleville. Outdoor screening, so beautiful, and people just came despite Ramadan. And then we did another 2 screenings with the African cultural people. You know, they brought the African community, and it was arts, fashion, music, and films.
Young filmmakers usually don't have a lot of budget. It's more like an underground type of filmmaking. Do you have any tips for young filmmakers how to approach it?
Nowadays, we have the most possibilities than ever because remember in the early 90s or in the 80s, you know, you have this 35 millimeter and it was so cumbersome and we are cutting and splicing. But nowadays, if you are savvy, you can do on your laptop. My Bulgarian editor, he edits all his films in between airport. He takes cheap flights and it's like 8-hour layover and one layover he finishes a documentary, short films or stuff like that. And it's just about doing, you know. In Lesotho, for example, the students, they wanted to have a workshop with me. I'm like, I'm not into theory. You want to learn about filmmaking? Let's make a film together. So I just got the students, we went on the streets and we came up with a concept and we made a short film. So it's about doing. Making mistakes, doing and being very avant-garde and experimental and, you know, capture the energy in the air and share your stories, you know, because each country has amazing stories. And, you know, in the Ivory Coast where I got the malaria, we just promoted this smartphone filmmaking and giving awards to people who make films with their phone. So there are no excuses. You can do it.
Yeah, that's right. So I wish you all the best with that film and your promotion, and have a good time in Paris. And when you have your next projects, I would love to have you back on. And maybe it's the Chernobyl project. I would be personally very interested in seeing that being done. And then we talk again. Thank you so much for coming on the channel.
Thank you. Bye, Andreas.